In the 1940s, Soviet scientists conducted an experiment so disturbing that it was erased from history. The goal: to keep humans awake for 30 days straight. 5 subjects were locked inside a sealed chamber and exposed to a powerful gas. At first they were fine, but then something went wrong. Their behavior changed, their minds twisted, then silence. When the chamber was finally opened, what the scientists found was so horrifying that the entire project was buried, and the truth was never spoken of again. Did this experiment really happen, or was it something far worse than we were ever meant to know? The first 5 days were uneventful. The prisoners talked to each other, shared stories, and even joked about what they would do after their release. Scientists monitored their behavior and recorded everything they said. By day 6, things started getting strange. The prisoners became quieter. They stopped interacting as much. They whispered into the microphones as if talking to someone who wasn't there. By day 9, the first subject started screaming. He screamed so loudly and for so long that his vocal cords tore, leaving him unable to make a sound. The others didn't react. They didn't even seem to notice. Then the others began tearing apart the room. They ripped apart their mattresses and destroyed the microphones. But what was even more disturbing was that they stopped speaking completely. By day 15, the chamber was completely silent. The scientists had to make a decision. The experiment was out of control. So they shut off the gas and prepared to open the chamber. But the moment the fresh air entered, a voice whispered through the microphone, "We no longer want to be freed." The scientists hesitated. Then they opened the door. Inside, they found a nightmare. Blood covered the walls. One of the prisoners was dead, but the cause was unknown. The others had horrific injuries, yet they were still alive, still conscious and smiling. One subject had ripped open his own abdomen and was pulling out his organs without flinching. Another had gouged out his own eyes. When security tried to remove them, they fought back with superhuman strength. One subject ripped a soldier's throat out with his teeth before being restrained. It took multiple men to hold just one of them down. Their bodies should have failed them, but they didn't. The surviving prisoners were taken to be examined. Doctors were horrified by what they found. Their bodies were badly damaged, but their muscles hadn't weakened at all. Their hearts kept beating even when they had lost too much blood to survive. They didn't react to pain, as if they couldn't feel it. One prisoner was strapped to a table. A scientist leaned over him and asked, "What happened to you?" The prisoner looked up, smiled, and whispered, "We are you. We are the madness that lives in all of you, begging to be set free." Then his heart stopped. The experiment was immediately shut down. Every document related to it was allegedly destroyed, and anyone involved was sworn to secrecy. But that hasn't stopped the rumors. Did the Soviet sleep experiment really happen? And if not, why do so many declassified documents point to experiments even worse than this? There are many theories about the Soviet sleep experiment. Some people believe it actually happened, while others think it was just a terrifying story designed to spread fear. But there are some disturbing details that make this case impossible to ignore. Some experts believe that the experiment was real, but later covered up by the Soviet Union. The Soviets were known for extreme human endurance testing, and declassified documents show that they experimented with sleep deprivation on prisoners. A Russian psychiatrist named Igor Smirnov later worked on ways to manipulate sleep cycles and control the human mind. If sleep deprivation studies were already happening, could this experiment have been part of something bigger? Others believe the entire story was Cold War propaganda. There are no official records of the experiment, and some say it was nothing more than a horror story meant to make the Soviets look like monsters. But if that were true, why do so many details match real experiments that were later declassified? The US government had its own secret projects, like MK Ultra, where they used sleep deprivation and drug testing to manipulate human behavior. If the US was doing it, why wouldn't the Soviets? Then there's the strangest theory of all, the idea that this experiment wasn't just about sleep. Some believe the gas used in the experiment wasn't a simple stimulant, but something much more powerful. Certain reports suggest that the subjects weren't just staying awake, they were changing. Soviet scientists were known to experiment with ways to push human limits, and some believe they may have accidentally unlocked something hidden inside the human mind, something we were never meant to access. Whether or not the Soviet sleep experiment really happened, one thing is certain. The Soviets conducted brutal experiments on human endurance, and some of those experiments remain classified to this day. Maybe the real question isn't whether this specific experiment happened, but how much worse the truth might actually be. The Soviet Union officially denies that this experiment ever took place, but declassified documents from Cold War research programs prove that they were experimenting with sleep deprivation, mind control, and endurance tests. If the Russian sleep experiment was just a made-up story, then why do so many details match real historical experiments? And if it was real, what happened to the scientists who conducted it? Maybe the real horror isn't whether this happened, but what else they were hiding.